The first stone struck the wagon before Orla Fen ever saw the mountain settlement. It was not large enough to hurt her. It was only a hard grey pebble, thrown by a boy standing beside the road. It bounced off the wooden wheel and vanished beneath the dust. The boy laughed, pointed at Orla, and shouted, "Look, Ma!" The wagon brought its own mountain. His mother pulled him away, but not before hiding a smile behind her hand. Orla lowered her tired eyes and tightened her fingers around the handle of her small brown case. She had been in Stonewater for less than a minute, and already someone had found a way to make her feel too large for it. The wagon continued toward the settlement beneath a sky crowded with silver clouds. Stonewater rested between two steep mountain ridges, so far from the nearest railroad that most maps left it unnamed. Dark pine trees surrounded the small cluster of buildings. Thin ribbons of smoke rose from chimneys. A general store, a church, a boarding house, and a sawmill stood along the single muddy road. Beyond them, the land climbed sharply toward the mountains, where patches of old snow still clung to the highest peaks, even though summer had nearly arrived. Orla had chosen Stonewater because nobody in Belhaven ever spoke of it. She wanted a place where the name Orla Fen meant nothing, a place where Lucian Vale's voice could not reach her, a place where she could enter a room without feeling every whisper turn in her direction. She had once owned 6 dresses, a walnut desk, a small collection of poetry books, and a bright upstairs room above the Belhaven dress shop where she worked. Now everything she owned fit inside one case. 2 plain dresses, a comb with 3 missing teeth, her mother's silver thimble, a little money sewn into the lining of her coat, and a bundle of letters she should have burned months ago but could not. The driver pulled the horses to a stop outside the Stonewater Inn. He climbed down, opened the wagon door, and looked at Orla's broad frame with an expression she knew well. "You might want to step careful," he said. "That running board has seen better days." Orla stared at the board. It was made of thick oak and had carried 2 heavy trunks that morning without bending. Still, she placed one boot on it gently. A group of men outside the general store watched her climb down. One leaned toward another and muttered something. The others laughed. Orla pretended not to hear. She was 32 years old, tall for a woman, and heavy enough that strangers often decided they understood her before she spoke. She had a broad waist, strong legs, full arms, and a soft, round face, framed by long, dark hair. Her eyes were grey and usually calm, but they carried the dull exhaustion of someone who had spent too many years preparing for the next insult. She had learned to move quietly despite her size. She apologized when she passed too close to someone. She chose strong chairs and stood whenever there was doubt. She ate slowly in public, afraid that one hungry bite might confirm everything people already believed about her. She smiled when jokes hurt her, because tears only made cruel people more curious. The driver dragged her case from the wagon and dropped it in the mud. "There you are," he said. Orla looked at the mud spreading across the worn leather. "You could have set it on the boardwalk." He shrugged. "Could have." The wagon rolled away before she could answer. Orla bent to lift the case. The handle broke in her hand. Her clothes spilled into the road. One of the men outside the store gave a low whistle. "Careful. She bends any farther, she may block the whole street." Laughter rolled along the boardwalk. Orla remained still for one painful second. Then she knelt in the mud and began gathering her things. Her face burned, but she kept her eyes on the ground. A pair of black boots stopped beside her. A man reached down and lifted the case before Orla could object. He was tall and broad across the shoulders, with a dark beard and a weathered face. His coat was faded, his hands were scarred, and there was something watchful in his deep-set eyes. He did not smile at the men. He did not smile at Orla either. He simply placed her clothes back inside the case. The loudest man on the boardwalk cleared his throat. "Didn't know you were taking in strays now, Rusk." The stranger closed the broken case and stood. "Didn't know you had learned to speak, Calder," he replied. The laughter stopped. Calder's expression tightened, but he looked away. The stranger lifted Orla's case, as though it weighed nothing. Orla rose slowly. "Thank you," He gave a short nod. Inn is behind you. I can carry that.
I know.
He carried it anyway. The woman behind the inn's front desk looked Orla over before greeting her. Her name, according to the painted sign, was Mrs. Wren. She was thin, straight-backed, and dressed in black despite the warm room. I need a room, Orla said. Only for a week or two, until I find work. Mrs. Wren's attention moved from Orla to the man holding her case. Mr. Rusk, Mrs. Wren, you staying in town? No, I didn't think so. She looked at Orla again. Our upstairs rooms are small. I don't need much space. The beds are old. I can sleep carefully. A faint smile passed over Mrs. Wren's mouth. That is not what I meant. Orla felt the room grow smaller. Adrian Rusk set the case beside the desk. Do you have a room or not? Mrs. Wren glanced at him. I have standards. She asked about a room, and I said the beds are old. I will not have furniture damaged because a guest refuses to admit what she is. Orla had heard worse words, but there was something about Mrs. Wren's calm voice that cut more deeply than open laughter. I understand, Orla said. Adrian's jaw tightened. No, you don't. Orla turned toward him. Please. She did not want a fight. She did not want anyone defending her. Defense attracted attention, and attention became gossip. Gossip had already taken almost everything from her once. She picked up the broken case with both arms. Adrian reached for it, but she stepped away. I said, I can carry it. This time he let her. Outside, the sky had darkened. Rain began falling in slow, heavy drops. Orla stood beneath the narrow roof of the inn, while people moved along the street. Nobody looked at her directly now, but she felt their curiosity. Adrian remained beside her. You have somewhere else to go? He asked. I will. That wasn't my question. Orla watched the rain strike the road. There must be another boarding house. There isn't. A church? Locked at night. A barn? Most people here value their horses more than strangers. She looked at him then. Do you always make a place sound so welcoming? I try to tell the truth. The rain grew harder, drumming against the roof. Adrian's eyes moved to the broken case in her arms. My cabin has a spare room, he said. Orla stared at him. It has a door, he added, and a lock on the inside. I don't know you. That makes two of us. Why would you offer a room to a stranger? Because there's a storm coming, and because Wren would let you sleep in the road before risking one of her precious beds. Orla studied his face, searching for amusement, interest, or hidden expectation. She found none. What would you want in return? She asked. Help with meals, maybe. I'm tired of eating burned beans. You trust a stranger in your home? No. The answer came so quickly that Orla almost smiled. Adrian looked toward the mountain. But I trust the weather less. Thunder moved across the ridge. Orla had spent the last year learning what happened when she trusted the wrong man. She had promised herself she would never again be carried along by a soft voice or an offered hand. Adrian Rusk's voice was not soft. His hand was not offered. He stood in the rain, looking like a man who would be just as comfortable if she refused. That, strangely, made him easier to believe. One night, she said. One night. His cabin was 3 miles above Stonewater. They climbed in a narrow wagon as rain washed the road behind them. Adrian drove without conversation. The trees grew denser with every turn, their dark branches forming a roof above the trail. By the time they reached the cabin, the settlement had disappeared below a wall of mist. The cabin stood in a clearing near a rocky stream. It was larger than Orla expected, with a covered porch, a stone chimney, and stacks of cut wood reaching almost to the roof. A shed and a small stable stood nearby. Everything looked plain but solid. Adrian brought her case inside and placed it beside a door at the end of the main room. That one is yours, he said. Mine is across the hall. Orla stepped into the spare room. There was a narrow bed, a washstand, a chair, and a small window overlooking the trees. She pressed her hand against the mattress. It was firm. Will it hold me? She asked, before she could stop herself. Adrian stood in the doorway. Something changed in his face, but it was not laughter. It held 3 sacks of grain during the winter, he said. You'll be fine. Orla turned away so he would not see the emotion that rose unexpectedly into her eyes. There's stew on the stove, he continued. It isn't good. I'm not very hungry. That's unfortunate. There's still too much of it. He left her alone. Orla sat on the edge of the bed and listened. The frame gave a small creak, then settled. Rain moved over the roof. Wind whispered around the corners of the cabin. Somewhere in the main room, a spoon struck the side of a pot. It was the first room in months where no one knew her name. For a little while, that was enough. She ate at Adrian's table that evening. The stew was as bad as he promised. The meat was tough, the carrots were soft, and everything tasted of smoke. Orla ate 2 small spoonfuls and put down her utensil. Adrian looked at her bowl. Told you. It could be repaired. You're kind. No, I mean it could actually be repaired. She stood, found salt, dried herbs and an onion, then returned the pot to the fire. Adrian watched her without interfering. 10 minutes later, she placed the stew back on the table. He tasted it. His eyebrows rose. Better? She asked. Much. You were cooking over too much heat. I was cooking over fire. That seemed reasonable. For the first time, Orla smiled. Adrian looked at her as if the smile had surprised him. Then he returned to the stew. The storm lasted through the night and into the next day. The mountain trail became a river of mud. 1 night turned into 3, and 3 became 5. Orla cooked, swept, and mended a torn curtain without being asked. Adrian split wood, checked traps, and spent long hours repairing tools in the shed. They moved around each other carefully, neither willing to ask questions that might disturb the fragile peace. On the 6th morning, Orla placed 2 coins on the table. For the room, she said. Adrian pushed them back. I won't stay as charity. Then don't. Her cheeks warmed. I meant I intend to pay. So did I. He pointed toward the shelves. Several jars of preserved food stood beside fresh bread Orla had baked in a heavy iron pot. I've eaten better this week than I have in 5 years. We're even. That bread does not equal a room. It does to me. She folded her hands. The road is dry now. It is. I should go. All right. The answer hurt more than it should have. Orla gathered her few belongings and carried the broken case to the porch. Adrian came outside, holding a coil of rope. Where will you stay? He asked. I will ask at the church. Reverend Tallis has 6 children in 2 rooms. Then I will find work first. Doing what? I was a seamstress. There's a sewing room behind Ruth Bell's store. Orla remembered Mrs. Bell. She was one of the women who had watched from the boardwalk when Orla arrived. She had not laughed, which seemed hopeful. Adrian loaded Orla's case into the wagon. Halfway to town, he said, the room will still be there if Bell says no. Orla looked toward the passing trees. Why are you helping me? He kept his eyes on the trail. You fixed the stew. That cannot be the reason. It's one of them. What are the others? Adrian was silent so long that Orla thought he would not answer. I know what it looks like when a whole town decides who someone is, he finally said. She waited for him to explain. He did not. Ruth Bell owned the general store with her husband. She was a cheerful woman with red cheeks and quick hands. When Orla asked about work, Ruth examined the neat repairs on Orla's coat and immediately led her to the sewing room. My sister used to do alterations, Ruth said. She married a farmer in Idaho and left me with 6 unfinished orders. If you can handle those, we can discuss regular wages. Orla's first day passed quietly. She shortened 2 skirts, repaired a boy's winter coat, and rebuilt the torn lining of a velvet jacket. Customers came and went. Some stared, some whispered, but Ruth praised her stitches loudly enough for everyone to hear. By sunset, Orla had earned enough to pay for food but not a room. You can continue staying at my cabin, Adrian said, when he arrived with the wagon. Ruth glanced between them. You're living with Adrian Rusk. Temporarily, Orla replied. Ruth's cheerful expression weakened. People may talk. People already talk. Yes, but Adrian has a certain reputation. Adrian leaned against the doorframe. Tell her, Ruth. Ruth busied herself folding cloth. It isn't my story. Then don't bring it up. On the ride home, Orla asked, "What reputation?" Adrian held the reins loosely. "My father drank. He fought. One night, he went after my mother with a fireplace poker. I stopped him." Orla's breath caught. "Did you kill him?" "No. But he left town and told everyone I tried." "How old were you?" 16. "And people believed him. They believed what was easier. He had friends. My mother was too frightened to speak. I was already quiet. So quiet became dangerous in their minds." Orla watched his profile. "That was a long time ago. People enjoy old stories. They don't require new thought." She looked toward the mountains. "I understand that." Adrian did not ask why. His silence felt like a door she could open when she was ready, not one he planned to force. The days settled into a gentle pattern. Orla worked in Ruth's sewing room while Adrian traded hides, repaired fences, or gathered supplies. Each evening, they returned to the cabin. Orla cooked. Adrian washed the dishes, badly at first, and then with growing skill. They talked about small things: weather, cloth, the stubbornness of his mule, the way the stream changed after rain. Orla learned that Adrian liked coffee strong enough to taste bitter. Adrian learned that Orla hated raisins, but loved apples cooked with cinnamon. She discovered that he carved tiny wooden animals during long winter nights. He discovered that she hummed while kneading bread and stopped whenever she realized he was listening. One evening, Adrian returned from the shed with a wooden chair. It was wider than the others, made of thick pine, with a curved back and strong legs. Orla ran her fingers over the smooth arms. "What is this?" "A chair." "I can see that. The one near the stove pinches your sides." Her face went hot. "You noticed?" "Yes. You didn't have to make another. I wanted to." She looked for pity and found only quiet care. "You made it wide," she said. "I made it comfortable." A small sound escaped her, somewhere between a laugh and a sob. She turned toward the stove before he could see her face. That night, she sat in the new chair with a cup of tea held between her hands. For once, she did not pull in her stomach or keep her arms close to make herself smaller. The chair supported her without protest. Adrian read near the window, giving her the gift of pretending not to notice what the chair meant. Weeks passed. The mountain changed from gray spring to deep green summer. Wildflowers appeared along the trails. Water rushed bright and cold over the stones. Orla began sleeping through the night. People in town slowly warmed to her. Mrs. Bell praised her work. Reverend Tallis asked her to repair the church curtains. A young mother, named May Larkin, brought in a christening dress and stayed for an hour talking about her baby. Even Mrs. Wren nodded when Orla passed the inn, though she never apologized. The insults did not disappear. Calder and his friends still laughed when she crossed the road. Children sometimes repeated things they had heard at home. One afternoon, Orla entered the store and found two women holding a length of cloth between them. "Do you have enough for a dress in her size?" one asked Ruth. Her friend giggled. "You would have to empty the whole shelf." Orla continued toward the sewing room. Ruth snapped, "That is enough." The women left without buying anything. Ruth found Orla threading a needle with trembling fingers. "I'm sorry," Ruth said. "You did not say it. I should have stopped them sooner." Orla forced a smile. "I am used to it." Ruth's expression softened. "That doesn't make it right." For a moment, Orla almost told her everything. She almost explained that laughter was not the worst thing people could do. Laughter could embarrass a woman, but a believable lie could erase her. Instead, Orla lowered her head and returned to work. That evening, Adrian noticed the tiny puncture in her finger. "You've been bleeding on the same piece of cloth for 5 minutes," he said. Orla set the fabric aside. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing unusual. That isn't the same as nothing." She stared into the fire. Two women made a joke. Names? Despite herself, she laughed. "What would you do?" "Nothing. I do not believe you. I would stare at them until they became uncomfortable. That might take all day. I have time." The smile faded from her face. "When I was younger, I thought I could become so useful that people would stop noticing how I looked. I worked harder than everyone. I stayed late. I never complained. If someone needed a dress repaired by morning, I did it. If another girl made a mistake, I quietly fixed it. I believed kindness would protect me. Did it? No. Adrian pulled a chair closer, but did not touch her. Orla continued, her voice low. People began expecting it. My kindness became something they were entitled to. When I finally said no, they acted as if I had injured them. Kindness without limits turns into permission, Adrian said. She looked at him. Where did you learn that? The hard way. Silence stretched between them, but it was not empty. It was filled with everything neither had said. A few days later, Orla found the photograph. It lay on the ground near Adrian's woodpile, half hidden beneath pine needles. The picture showed Orla standing outside the Belhaven dress shop 2 years earlier. She wore a pale dress and held a measuring book against her chest. Lucian Vale stood beside her, smiling. She had not seen the photograph since the week her life collapsed. Her knees weakened. On the back, someone had written 4 words in dark ink. You cannot hide forever. Orla stared toward the trees. The forest stood quiet. Sunlight moved between the branches. A bird called from somewhere beyond the stream. Adrian? She shouted. There was no answer. He had gone to check traps before dawn. She hurried into the cabin and locked the door. Her breath came too quickly. She placed the photograph on the table, then covered it with a cloth, because she could not bear Lucian's smiling face. When Adrian returned, Orla was waiting. He noticed the locked door. What happened? She opened it, but did not step aside. Who have you spoken to about me? She asked. His eyes narrowed. No one. Did you search my case? No. Did you read my letters? No. Then explain this. She placed the photograph in his hand. Adrian studied it and turned it over. His expression became still. Who is the man? He asked. You know. I don't. You must. Why? Because this was beside your woodpile. Adrian looked toward the trees. When did you find it? This morning. Any tracks? I wasn't studying the ground. He stepped outside. Adrian. He crouched near the woodpile and examined the soil. Orla watched from the porch, hugging her arms around herself. After several minutes he stood. Boot marks. Narrow heel. Not mine. You expect me to believe someone walked 3 miles up a mountain just to leave an old photograph? Yes. Who? I don't know. But you knew I was in Belhaven. No. You never asked where I came from because you already knew. Adrian faced her. Hurt moved through his eyes so briefly she almost missed it. I didn't ask because you didn't want to tell me. Orla's anger weakened, but fear remained. He held out the photograph. Keep this. We may need it. We? You're not dealing with it alone. You do not even know what it means. No. But I know you were afraid before you were angry. She looked away. Adrian's voice softened. Tell me who he is. Orla returned to the cabin and sat in the wide chair. Her hands shook in her lap. Adrian remained near the door, keeping space between them. His name is Lucian Vale, she began. His father owned most of Belhaven's warehouses. Lucian was wealthy, educated, and admired. When he entered a room, people watched him. When he spoke, they believed him. How did you know him? He came to the dress shop for a coat repair. After that, he returned with small reasons to see me. A missing button, a loose sleeve, a gift for his sister that needed wrapping. He said I was different from the women he knew. He said they cared only about his money, but I saw the man beneath it. Adrian's mouth tightened. Men like him enjoy saying that. I know that now. Lucian had begun with kindness. He brought flowers after closing time. He remembered Orla's birthday. He asked about her mother, her work, and the books she loved. When men laughed at her in the street, he confronted them. When women whispered, he offered his arm and walked beside her, as if their cruelty meant nothing. For the first time, Orla had felt chosen. He never asked to marry me, she said, but he let me believe he would. Then he asked me to alter several business papers. He said a clerk had copied the figures incorrectly, and his father would be furious. I refused at first. He told me I was the only person he trusted. What kind of papers? Shipping accounts, payments, records from the warehouses. I copied numbers in my own hand because his clerk recognized Lucian's writing. Adrian's eyes darkened. He was stealing. Yes, I understood too late. When the missing money was discovered, Lucian produced the papers and claimed Orla had altered them to punish him for rejecting her. He told people she had imagined a romance that never existed. He said she followed him, threatened him, and used his kindness as an excuse to enter his office. Orla had tried to defend herself, but Lucian's story gave Belhaven something it enjoyed more than the truth. It gave the town permission to laugh at her hope. "They said I should have known a man like him would never want a woman like me," she whispered. "My employer dismissed me. The landlord asked me to leave because respectable women in the building felt unsafe. Even my closest friend testified that I had spoken often about Lucian." "Had you?" "Yes, because I believed he loved me." Her eyes filled, but she refused to cry. "Lucian never needed to prove I stole anything," she said. "He only needed to make people embarrassed for me. Once they saw me as a desperate, foolish woman, chasing a handsome man, everything else became easy to believe." Adrian looked down at the photograph. "Did he threaten you after you left?" "Not directly. He sent messages through others. He said I owed him for the trouble I caused. He said if I tried to accuse him again, he would make certain no town welcomed me. And now this appears here." Orla nodded. Adrian crossed to the fire and placed another piece of wood inside. "Then someone knows where you are." The room suddenly felt cold. "Maybe he followed me," she said. "Maybe. Or someone told him." Adrian looked at her. "We'll find out." Orla wanted to believe him. She wanted to lean into the calm certainty of his voice. But trust had once sounded like Lucian's gentle promises. She could not forget that. The next morning, Adrian rode into Stonewater, alone. He asked the stage driver whether any strangers had arrived. He spoke to the stable boy, the postmaster, and the men at the sawmill. No one admitted seeing Lucian. Orla remained in the sewing room. Around noon, Ruth entered carrying a torn envelope. "This was pushed beneath the store door," she said. "It has your name." Orla recognized the handwriting before she opened it. Inside was a piece of the first letter Lucian had ever sent her. "My dearest Orla, I find myself thinking of you at strange hours." The rest had been torn away. A new message had been written across the bottom. "Does the mountain man know how easily you believed me?" Orla's hand went numb. Ruth leaned closer. "Who wrote that?" "No one." "Orla, it is an old matter. It does not look old." Orla folded the paper. "Did you see who delivered it?" "No." "Has anyone been asking about me?" Ruth hesitated. The hesitation frightened Orla more than an answer. "Who?" she asked. "A traveling salesman came through last week. He asked where you were staying. I thought he wanted sewing work." "What did he look like?" "Short, brown coat, mustache." It was not Lucian, but Lucian rarely handled his own unpleasant work. "What did you tell him?" Ruth's face changed. "Only that you lived above town. I didn't give directions." Orla rose. "Where are you going?" Ruth asked. "Home. It is the middle of the day. I need to speak with Adrian." Ruth touched her sleeve. "Orla, wait. There is something else." Orla turned. "Some women in town have heard things," Ruth said carefully. "They say you caused trouble in Belhaven, that you accused a respected man after he refused your attention. Who told them?" "I don't know." "You always know." Ruth lowered her eyes. "Mrs. Wren received a letter. Her cousin lives near Belhaven." "May I see it?" "I doubt she will show you." "Then how do you know what it says?" Ruth said nothing. The truth settled heavily between them. "You saw it," Orla said. "Only briefly. And you believed it." "I did not say that. You did not need to." Ruth's voice sharpened. "What was I supposed to think?" "The letter mentioned altered accounts and threats. It said you were unstable. Have I seemed unstable to you?" "No, but people can hide things." Orla stepped back as though Ruth had struck her. Ruth reached out. "I'm trying to be honest." "So am I." "Then tell me what happened." "I should not have to open every wound just to earn the right to be treated decently. That isn't fair." "No," Orla said. "It isn't. She collected her coat and left. Outside, two women stood near the water pump. They stopped speaking when Orla passed. A group of children watched from the church steps. One boy whispered, "That is her." By the time Orla reached the edge of town, she was walking too quickly to breathe comfortably. She slowed, but refused to stop. The trail stretched upward through the trees. Every shadow seemed occupied. Every broken branch sounded like a footstep. Halfway to the cabin, she heard a horse behind her. Adrian appeared around the bend. He dismounted at once. "What happened? You went to town?" "Yes." "Who did you speak to?" "The driver, the stable boy, the postmaster, and half the sawmill." "Did you tell them about Lucian?" "No." "Did you show anyone the photograph?" "The sheriff." Orla froze. "You what?" "I asked if he recognized the man. You had no right. Someone came onto my land and threatened you. My past belongs to me, and the stranger on my land concerns me." She stared at him, breathing hard. "Did the sheriff recognize Lucian?" "No." "Did he tell anyone?" "I don't know." "You don't know." "Orla, listen to me." "No. You said we would find out, and then you carried that photograph into town, where everyone already enjoys talking about me. I was trying to help. So was Lucian." The words left her before she could stop them. Adrian's face closed. Orla regretted it immediately, but fear kept her from apologizing. He picked up his horse's reins. "The wagon is near the lower crossing. I came to get you." "I can walk." "I know." Again, the familiar words held no warmth. They returned separately. At the cabin, Orla found a torn page pinned to the door with a small knife. It was another piece of Lucian's letter. "You deserve every beautiful thing this world has denied you." Beneath it, someone had added, "He laughed when he wrote this." Adrian pulled the knife free. Orla backed away from him. "You said no one followed you." "No one did." "Then how did this get here?" "There are trails through the eastern ridge." "Who knows them?" "Hunters, trappers, half the men in Stonewater. And you." His eyes met hers. Silence filled the clearing. Orla hated herself for suspecting him. She hated Lucian more for making suspicion feel necessary. "I need to leave," she said. "Where will you go?" "Anywhere. That is what he wants." "You don't know what he wants." "I know he wants you frightened. You think that because fear is simple to you, you can stand there with your gun and your sharp eyes and make people step back. I cannot frighten them, Adrian. When I stand tall, they call me angry. When I speak loudly, they say I am dangerous. When I defend myself, they say I prove every ugly thing they believed." Adrian's voice remained quiet. "Then let them say it." "You do not understand." "No," he said. "I understand exactly." She stopped. He drove the knife into the porch rail, burying its point in the wood. "I spent 16 years letting this town believe I was nearly a killer," he said. "I told myself their opinion didn't matter, but that was a lie. It mattered every time a mother pulled her child away from me. It mattered every time a man lowered his voice when I entered a room. Silence did not protect me. It only gave their story more time to grow." Orla looked at him. "What should I do?" she asked. "Not run. That is easy for you to say." "No, it isn't." She sank onto the porch step. "I am tired." Adrian sat several feet away. "I am so tired of proving I am not what people call me," she continued. "Too large, too needy, too foolish, too desperate to be loved. Every room feels like a trial, and I never know what charge I am answering." Adrian rested his arms on his knees. "Then stop answering." "How?" "Tell the truth once. Tell it clearly. Then let the shame belong to the people who chose the lie." Her eyes filled. What if they still believe him? "I will believe you. That may not be enough." "No," he said, "but it's where we start." The next week brought more whispers. Customers stopped bringing work to the sewing room. Reverend Tallis sent word that the church curtains could wait. May Larkin crossed the road when she saw Orla coming, though she had once spent an entire afternoon laughing beside her. Worst of all, Ruth became careful. She remained polite, but her warmth disappeared. She no longer left Orla alone near the account book. She counted the money twice at closing. Every small act said what Ruth would not. Orla considered leaving each morning. Each evening, she returned to Adrian's cabin. Then, on a grey Thursday, she found him kneeling beside the eastern trail with a strip of red cloth in his hand. "What is that?" she asked. "Caught on a branch." The cloth was fine wool, expensive and clean. It did not belong to any mountain hunter. Adrian led her along the trail. Near the stream, they found horse tracks and the remains of a small fire. A cigar lay crushed beneath a stone. Orla recognized the sweet scent. "Lucian smokes these," she said. Adrian examined the tracks. At least 2 men. "He is here, close." A cold wind moved through the trees. Orla wrapped her coat around herself. "He will not stop. Then we make him careless." "How?" Adrian looked toward town below. "By letting him think you are alone." They began collecting everything. The photograph, the letters, the knife, the cloth. Adrian drew the tread pattern from the tracks and compared it with boots in Stonewater's stable. Orla wrote down dates, times, names, and every rumor she heard. At first, the work felt useless. Lucian had wealth and charm. They had scraps of paper and suspicion. Then May Larkin came to the cabin after dark. She stood outside holding her baby beneath a blanket. "May I come in?" she asked. Orla almost refused. Then she saw the fear in May's face. Adrian took the baby while May removed her wet coat. He held the child stiffly, as if it were a bundle likely to explode. Under different circumstances, Orla might have laughed. May sat at the table. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I avoided you. I noticed. Mrs. Wren said you had lied about a man in Belhaven. She said you tried to ruin him. And you believed her." "Yes." Orla waited. May twisted her hands. "Yesterday, a man came to my house. Brown coat, mustache. He offered my husband work at a new timber camp if I would tell him when you went to town and when Adrian was away." Adrian's expression hardened. "Did you agree?" Orla asked. May began to cry. "I said I would think about it. My husband has been out of work for 2 months. We need money. But then the man said something about you." "What?" "He said it was easy to make people suspicious of a woman like that. Those were his words. A woman like that." He laughed. "And I understood he was using us. Do you know where he is staying?" "No, but he said he would meet me Saturday behind the old meeting hall." Orla looked at Adrian. Saturday was the midsummer gathering, when nearly everyone in Stonewater met at the old hall for music, food, and announcements from the council. "He expects me to be there," May said. "He wants to know if Orla plans to speak." "Then tell him she doesn't," Adrian replied. May looked frightened. "What are you planning?" Orla glanced at the collection of letters on the table. "The truth," she said. 2 days later, Ruth Bell appeared at the cabin. She looked exhausted. "I found this beneath my husband's account book," she said. She handed Orla a sealed note. "Ruth, continue encouraging the women to keep their distance. Mr. Vale appreciates your assistance and will remember your son's debt when the matter is finished." Orla read it twice. "You were helping him," she said. Ruth's face crumpled. "My son borrowed money in Belhaven. He lost it gambling. Lucian bought the debt. He said he would send my boy to prison if I did not tell him about you. You told the salesman where I lived." "Yes. You let him place the torn letter beneath the store door." Ruth nodded. "You read my private message." "Yes. And when I asked if you believed the rumors, you made me feel as if I were guilty for refusing to explain. I was ashamed." "No, you were afraid. You gave the shame to me." Ruth began to cry. Orla felt no satisfaction. She only felt tired. "How many others?" Adrian asked. "Mrs. Wren. Calder. 2 men at the sawmill." "Maybe more. He offered favors, paid debts, promised work." "Where is Lucian?" Orla asked. "Staying in an abandoned hunting lodge west of town. He plans to come to the gathering tomorrow. He wants to confront you in public." "Why?" Ruth wiped her face. "He says he has papers proving you stole from him." Orla's heart sank. Adrian leaned forward. "Are they real?" "The papers exist," Orla said, "but they do not prove what he says. They may be enough for people who already want to believe him," Ruth whispered. Orla stood and walked to the window. Below the clearing, Stonewater rested in the valley. Smoke rose from the chimneys. From this distance, it looked peaceful. I spent months wondering why Lucian would continue hurting me after I left, she said. He had already won. He didn't win, Adrian replied. You escaped. That may be why he followed. Orla touched the cool glass. Lucian did not need her money. He did not need revenge for any harm she had caused. He needed her silence because she remembered the truth. As long as she lived quietly and shamefully somewhere far away, his story remained safe. If she built a new life, if people respected her, if she ever spoke without fear, then others might listen. She turned from the window. Tomorrow, he expects a frightened woman, she said. That is what we will give him. The midsummer gathering began beneath a pale blue sky. Long tables filled the field beside the old meeting hall. Children ran through the grass. Musicians tuned their instruments near the steps. The entire settlement seemed present. Orla dressed slowly at the cabin. She wore a dark green dress she had made from cloth Ruth gave her during their first week together. It did not hide her body. It followed her broad shape without apology. She braided her long hair and pinned it back from her face. Adrian waited beside the wagon. You don't have to do this, he said. Yes, I do. You can still change your mind. No. He nodded and helped her into the wagon. Not because she was unable to climb, but because his hand was there, and she wanted to take it. As they approached the gathering, conversations faded. Orla felt every eye move across her body. She heard a whisper near the tables. She has nerve showing up. Another voice answered. Some women don't know when they aren't wanted. Orla's steps slowed. Adrian walked beside her. Look at me. She did. Breathe. She drew in air. Again. She breathed once more. That's it, he said. Keep walking. Mrs. Wren stood with several women near the hall. Ruth was beside them, pale but determined. May held her baby near the front. Calder and the sawmill men watched from the edge of the crowd. At first, nothing happened. Food was served. The musicians played. Orla sat at the end of a bench that had been reinforced for outdoor use. 2 people quietly moved away. Then a polished black carriage came down the road. Lucian Vale stepped out. He looked almost exactly as Orla remembered. Tall, handsome, and carefully dressed in a charcoal coat. His golden brown hair was neatly combed. His smile appeared modest, almost apologetic. Beside him stood the man in the brown coat. The crowd turned with open curiosity. Lucian removed his hat. I am sorry to disturb your celebration. His voice carried easily. Orla's hands grew cold. He looked at her, and his smile became gentle. Orla, he said, I have been worried about you. The familiar warmth in his voice opened an old pain inside her. Adrian rose, but Orla touched his arm. Stay, she whispered. Lucian approached slowly, making certain everyone saw his patience. I came because your friends in Belhaven fear for you, he continued. You disappeared while serious questions remained unanswered. When I learned you were living in isolation, with a man feared by the community, I felt responsible. Adrian's body became still. Lucian looked around. I do not wish to embarrass her. That would be a change, Orla said. A few people shifted. Lucian sighed sadly. You see, she is still angry. He removed papers from his coat. These records show that Orla altered financial accounts belonging to my family. When I discovered what she had done, she invented a relationship between us. She threatened to accuse me of terrible conduct unless I married her. Whispers spread. Lucian lowered his voice. I tried to protect her reputation. I knew she had suffered unkind treatment because of her appearance. I understood how lonely she was. I believed compassion might help her. Unfortunately, she mistook compassion for affection. The words were carefully chosen. Each one returned Orla to Belhaven. People looked at her with pity. Pity had always been Lucian's sharpest weapon. Anger might have made her appear dangerous, but pity made her appear foolish. He held out the papers. I ask only that Miss Fen return with me and answer the lawful complaint. Sheriff Danner stepped forward. Is there a warrant? Lucian smiled. The paperwork is being prepared. Then you have no authority here. Adrian said. Lucian finally looked at him. And you must be Adrian Rusk. I have heard about you. Most lies travel faster than men. Lucian's smile weakened. Orla rose. Her knees trembled, but her voice remained clear. May I see those papers? Lucian hesitated. You know them well. Then you should not mind. He gave them to the sheriff instead. Perhaps a neutral person should hold them. That is sensible, Orla said. Neutral people matter greatly when you are telling a lie. The field became quiet. Lucian shook his head. There is no need for a scene. You crossed 200 miles to create one. I came to help you. You sent a man to threaten people in this settlement. The man in the brown coat stepped backward. Lucian did not look at him. I have no idea what you mean. May Larkin moved to the front. Her baby slept against her shoulder. He offered my husband work if I watched Orla, she said. He wanted to know when she was alone. Lucian glanced at her. Madam, I have never seen you before. You sent him. May pointed toward the man in the brown coat. The man turned toward the carriage, but Adrian moved into his path. No one is stopping you, Adrian said quietly. But leaving now will look unfortunate. The man remained where he was. Ruth Bell stepped forward next. Her hands shook as she held up Lucian's note. He threatened my son over a debt. He ordered me to spread rumors and tell him where Orla lived. Lucian laughed softly. That note could have been written by anyone. Then perhaps you recognize the seal, Ruth said. She turned the paper. A small mark had been pressed into the red wax. It showed a falcon above the letter V. Orla remembered the seal well. Lucian had used it on every tender letter he once sent her. The smile disappeared from his face. Mrs. Wren spoke from near the hall. I received a letter with the same seal. Orla looked at her. Mrs. Wren's face was hard, but shame moved through her eyes. It told me Miss Fen had damaged furniture at several boarding houses and left without paying. I used that as an excuse to turn her away. Was it true? The sheriff asked. No. How do you know? Because I wrote to 2 of the boarding houses. Neither had ever heard of her. A murmur passed through the gathering. Mrs. Wren faced Orla. I could have learned that before I humiliated you. I chose not to. Lucian raised one hand. This is becoming absurd. A few letters do not erase financial records. You are right, Orla said. They do not. She looked toward Adrian. He brought her small brown case from the wagon. Lucian's eyes followed it. For the first time, Orla saw fear. She opened the case and removed the bundle of letters she had carried from Belhaven. You wrote to me for 11 months, she said. You described our future. You discussed the house you wanted to build. You told me which room would be mine. You asked me to keep our courtship secret because your father would object. Lucian recovered quickly. Those letters are false. Orla handed the first one to the sheriff. Check the seal. The same falcon appeared in the wax. Lucian's voice sharpened. A seal can be copied. Yes, so can handwriting. That is what you asked me to do. She faced the crowd. He did not choose me because he loved me. He chose me because I was useful and easy to discredit. I copied numbers from documents he brought to the dress shop. He said the originals had been damaged. When money disappeared from his family's business, he showed everyone the pages written in my hand. Lucian stepped toward her. Be careful. Adrian moved, but Orla lifted her palm. No, she said. Let him speak. Lucian stared at her. Tell them what will happen if I continue, Orla said. Tell them nobody will believe a woman like me. Tell them I should be grateful you noticed me at all. Those were your favorite words when we were alone. You are confused. No, I was confused when I thought cruelty became kindness simply because a handsome man spoke softly. A woman near the back of the crowd began crying. Everyone turned. She was young, perhaps 25, with fair hair beneath a plain blue bonnet. Orla had never seen her before. The woman stepped forward. My name is Eliza Marr. I worked in the Vale household. Lucian's face lost its color. Eliza held a leather account book against her chest. When the missing money was discovered, Mr. Vale ordered me to burn several ledgers, she said. I burned the ones he gave me, but I kept this. Lucian moved toward her. You stole private property. Eliza flinched. Orla crossed the space between them and stood beside her. Lucian stopped. Eliza opened the book. It records payments to shipping companies that did not exist. The money went to an account under another name. Mr. Vale signed every transfer. Why did you wait? Someone asked. Because he told me what happened to Orla would happen to me. He said people would believe I was a jealous servant. When I heard he had followed her here, I knew he would never stop. The sheriff took the ledger. Lucian looked around the field as if searching for the obedient faces he expected. Instead, people looked back with doubt. Calder stepped away from the crowd. Adrian noticed. Going somewhere? Calder's shoulders sagged. Vale paid us to laugh at her. At the store, near the church. He said if enough people joined in, she would leave. Orla stared at him. You did not need much convincing. Calder lowered his eyes. No. That answer hurt, but it was honest. Another man admitted planting the photograph. A woman confessed that she had repeated Lucian's story at the church. One by one, the quiet pieces of his plan appeared. None seemed powerful alone. A whisper, a joke, a cold look. A door closed without explanation. Together, they had nearly driven Orla from another home. Lucian's voice rose. Listen to yourselves. You are trusting servants, debtors, and this woman over me. This woman has a name, Adrian said. Lucian turned on him. You think she loves you? She attached herself to me for money. She will do the same to you. The insult struck the crowd with an ugly silence. Orla felt the old shame reach for her. It whispered that she was ridiculous. That love made her weak, that everyone was looking at her body and wondering why any man would choose it. Then Adrian spoke. She owns more kindness than you could buy, he said. More courage than you could understand. If she chooses to stand beside me, I will consider it the greatest honor of my life. Orla looked at him. He did not reach for her. He did not claim her or speak in her place. He simply stood where she could see him. The choice remained hers. She faced Lucian again. You were right about one thing, she said. I was lonely. I wanted to be loved so badly that I ignored the small cruelties hidden inside your kindness. I believed you because I did not yet believe I deserved better. Lucian smiled faintly, as if he sensed weakness. Orla continued. I do not hate the woman I was. She was trusting, not foolish. She was hopeful, not desperate. You used those good things against her. That shame belongs to you. His smile disappeared. You cannot prove every claim, he said. I do not need to. You will always be the woman people laughed at. Perhaps. You will always hear the jokes. Perhaps. You think one mountain man and a few frightened witnesses can give you back what you lost. Orla looked around the field. No, she said. They cannot give it back, and neither can you. My old work is gone. My home is gone. Years of my life are gone. I cannot recover them by destroying you. She stepped closer. But you no longer decide what happens next. The sheriff closed the account book. Mr. Vale, you will remain in Stonewater while I send these records to Belhaven. Lucian stared at him. You have no power over me. I have enough to hold a man accused of fraud and intimidation until another authority arrives. Lucian looked toward his carriage. Adrian moved aside, leaving the path open. For a moment, Orla thought Lucian might run. Instead, he straightened his coat and attempted one last smile. This settlement will regret believing her. Nobody answered. Lucian's smile faded completely. Sheriff Danner escorted him toward the town office. The man in the brown coat followed under guard. No one cheered. There was no sudden celebration, no joyful music, and no perfect feeling of justice. Only a long silence remained. Orla stood in the middle of it, breathing. Ruth approached first. I am sorry. Orla looked at her. I know that is not enough, Ruth said. No. Will it ever be? I don't know. Ruth nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. That is fair. Mrs. Wren came next. There is a room at the inn whenever you want it. Orla almost laughed at the smallness of the offer and the size of what had happened. I have a room, she said. Mrs. Wren glanced toward Adrian. Yes, I suppose you do. May embraced Orla carefully, as if asking permission with every movement. Orla returned the embrace. Others tried to speak, but Orla could not listen anymore. The strength that held her upright had begun to crack. Every face blurred. Every voice sounded far away. She turned toward Adrian. "Take me home." He did not ask whether she meant the cabin. He knew. They rode into the mountains while evening settled over the trees. Orla sat silently beside him. The valley fell away behind them. No one followed. At the cabin, Adrian unhitched the horse. Orla went inside and stood beside the table. The room looked exactly as it had that morning. The wide chair waited near the stove. Bread rested beneath a cloth. A blue cup sat beside the basin. Ordinary things, safe things. Orla removed her coat, folded it once, and placed it on the chair. Then she began to cry. The first sob bent her forward. The second dropped her to her knees. Adrian entered and stopped near the door. "I'm sorry," Orla gasped. He closed the door behind him. "I don't know why I'm crying." "Yes, you do. I won. That doesn't mean it didn't hurt." She covered her face with both hands. The sound that came from her was raw and frightened. It seemed to belong to every year she had remained quiet. "I believed him," she cried. "I believed every word." Adrian sat on the floor several feet away. "I gave him my trust. I defended him when people warned me. I helped him. I thought someone had finally looked at me and seen a woman worth loving." Her breath broke. When he denied it, people laughed. My friend Mara laughed too. She said I should have known better. She said men like Lucian did not choose women who looked like me. I had known her since childhood, Adrian. She ate at my mother's table. She slept beside me when my mother died. And she looked at me as if my pain was something shameful. Adrian said nothing. I pretended it did not matter. I packed my dresses. I sold my books. I smiled at the landlord while he changed the lock. I did not cry because I thought crying would prove I was weak. Her shoulders shook. I was hurt every day. Every joke, every stare. Every person who took my kindness and offered nothing in return. It all hurt. I lied when I said I was used to it. I never became used to it. "I know," Adrian said. "No, you don't. You're right." The answer made her look at him. His eyes were wet. "I don't know exactly how it felt," he continued. "But I know what it is to carry pain so long that putting it down feels dangerous." Orla lowered her hands. Adrian remained where he was. He did not tell her to calm down. He did not promise everything would be fine. He did not pull her into his arms before she invited him. He simply stayed. So Orla cried. She grieved her work, her room, and the dresses she had sewn with pride. She grieved the friend who had abandoned her. She grieved the woman in Lucian's letters who believed a different life was beginning. She grieved every meal she had left unfinished because someone was watching, every chair she had feared, and every room she had entered, already apologizing for the space she occupied. Night gathered outside. Adrian lit a lamp. Still, he stayed. At last, Orla's tears slowed. She sat with her back against the wide chair, exhausted and empty. "Do you think less of me?" she asked. "For crying? For believing him?" "No. You should. I don't." "Why?" "Because I believed my father when he said the town would hate me if I spoke. I believed him for 16 years. Orla looked at the fire. "Perhaps we were both too willing to let cruel men explain us," she said. "Perhaps." She wiped her face with her sleeve. "I accused you. You were afraid. I compared you to him. That part I disliked." A tired laugh escaped her. Adrian's mouth softened. "I am sorry," she said. "I know." She held out her hand. He crossed the space between them and took it. His fingers were rough and warm. Orla pulled gently, and Adrian sat beside her. She leaned against his shoulder. He placed one arm around her only after she settled there. For a long time, they watched the fire. "I do not want to run again," she whispered. "Then stay. I cannot remain in your spare room forever." "No." She lifted her head, uncertain. Adrian looked suddenly nervous, which seemed impossible for a man half the settlement feared. "I've been trying to say something for weeks," he admitted. You are not a man who says many things. That is the difficulty. Orla waited. He looked toward the wide chair, the window, and finally her. When you arrived, this cabin was a place where I slept. I thought that was all I needed. Then you filled it with bread, music, questions, and arguments about how badly I cut onions. You cut them terribly. I know that now. She smiled. Adrian continued. When you are in town, the cabin feels empty. When you return, it feels like mine again. No, that is wrong. He frowned, searching for words. It feels like ours. Orla's smile trembled. I don't want gratitude, he said. And I don't want an answer tonight because you are tired and hurt. But I want you to know that I love you, not because you needed shelter. Not because I pity what happened. I love the way you think before you speak. I love that you repair things other people throw away. I love your laugh, even though you keep trying to hide it. I love the space you fill. Orla looked down at their joined hands. No one has ever said that to me. Then people have been foolish. Adrian, I mean it. She studied his face. His words did not glitter like Lucian's promises. They were plain, imperfect, and difficult for him. That made them feel solid. I cannot promise I will trust easily, she said. I know. I may question you. I know. I may wake in the night and decide I should leave. I'll keep the wagon where you can find it. Her eyes filled again, but these tears were softer. And if I stay, she asked, I'll make another chair. She laughed then, openly and without covering her mouth. Adrian smiled. Orla touched his face. You are a strange man, so I've heard. She leaned forward and kissed him. It was not the kiss of a rescued woman or a grateful guest. It was not a promise that every wound had healed. It was a choice made freely by a woman who finally understood that her heart belonged to her. Summer passed into autumn. News arrived from Belhaven that the Ledger had opened a larger investigation into the Vale warehouses. Lucian's accounts were frozen. Several former employees came forward. A clerk admitted that Lucian had ordered him to change shipping dates. 2 women described courtships that had followed the same pattern as Orla's. Kind words, secret promises, a request for help, then denial and humiliation when they became inconvenient. Lucian's power did not disappear in a single day, but it weakened each time someone spoke without shame. Orla returned to Ruth's sewing room under new terms. She became a partner, not an employee. Ruth gave her half the profits, and Orla insisted every agreement be written clearly. Trust returned slowly. Some people in Stonewater apologized. Others behaved as if they had done nothing. A few continued whispering because cruelty had become too comfortable to surrender. Orla no longer chased them for understanding. When someone insulted her near the general store, she did not bow her head. Yes, she said calmly. I am a large woman. Did you imagine I had not noticed? The speaker turned red, while several people laughed at him. Orla walked on. She started teaching sewing to 3 young women in the evenings. One was quiet and thin. Another had a scar across her cheek. The third stuttered when nervous. Orla never allowed jokes about any of them. You do not have to become smaller to make another person comfortable, she told them. Not in your body, your voice, your hope, or your work. May began visiting the cabin again. Mrs. Wren sent preserves every month, though she still struggled to speak directly about the day she refused Orla a room. Calder avoided Orla for most of the winter. In early spring, he appeared at the sewing room with a broken wooden sign. I made this, he said. The sign read, Fen and Bell, Cloth and Alterations. It is good work, Orla admitted. I did not come for praise. Then why did you come? He looked at the floor. To tell you I was cruel before anyone paid me. Vale did not create that part of me. He only found it useful. Orla waited. I am trying to become someone he could not use again, Calder said. She studied him for a long moment. That would be a worthy thing, she replied. It was not forgiveness, but it was a beginning. Adrian repaired the cabin roof before the spring rains. Orla planted herbs beside the porch and hung pale curtains in the windows. They never rushed to define the life growing between them. They simply lived it. Some evenings, Orla still grew quiet when a wagon approached unexpectedly. Some nights, she woke from dreams of Belhaven with Lucian's voice in her ears. Adrian never told her the dreams were foolish. He lit the lamp. He made tea. He sat beside her until the fear passed. 1 year after Orla arrived in Stonewater, the settlement held another midsummer gathering. Music drifted over the field. Children chased one another through tall grass. Long tables stood beneath bright cloth awnings. Orla brought 6 apple pies. When she entered the field, people greeted her by name. Some admired her blue dress. Others asked about Adrian, who was carrying 3 pies behind her and pretending not to struggle. Mrs. Wren had reinforced every bench. Orla noticed, but said nothing. Near sunset, Adrian asked her to walk with him toward the stream. They followed the water beyond the music until the gathering became a distant glow between the trees. He stopped beside a wide cottonwood. "I have something for you," he said. "If it is another chair, we have nowhere to put it." "It isn't." He removed a small wooden box from his coat. Inside rested a plain silver ring. Orla's breath caught. "I can make a speech," he said, "but it may be terrible. I would like to hear it." Adrian took a slow breath. "A year ago, you came up this mountain because there was nowhere else to go. I don't want you to stay because you lack another place. I want you to stay because this is the life you choose." Orla looked at the ring. "And if I choose it?" she asked. "Then I will spend every day being grateful." She met his eyes. "I choose you," she said. "I choose the cabin. I choose the mountain. I choose the work waiting tomorrow and the roof that will probably leak again next spring. It will not. It will." He almost smiled. "And I choose myself," Orla continued. "I need you to understand that. I do. If loving you ever requires me to disappear, I will leave." "It never will." "Then yes." Adrian slid the ring onto her finger. When they returned to the gathering, May saw the ring first and screamed loudly enough to frighten the musicians. People crowded around them. Ruth cried. Mrs. Wren pretended she had smoke in her eyes. Even the sheriff smiled. Orla stood among them without shrinking. Months later, she married Adrian beside the stream near the cabin. She wore an ivory dress made with her own hands. It had no tight stays, no narrow waist, and no clever seams meant to make her appear smaller. The fabric moved freely around her broad frame. The women she taught had embroidered tiny mountain flowers along the sleeves. Before the ceremony, Orla studied herself in the small bedroom mirror. Her round cheeks were flushed. Her dark hair fell down her back. Her body looked exactly as it had the day she arrived in Stonewater. Yet she no longer saw the woman from the wagon. That woman had believed safety meant disappearing. She had believed love belonged to people who fit easily into the world. She had believed dignity could be taken by laughter. Orla touched the silver ring. Nothing about her had needed to become smaller. Outside, Adrian waited beneath the trees. The settlement had gathered near the stream, but Orla did not walk toward them for approval. She walked because the life ahead belonged to her. Adrian held out his hand. "You ready?" he asked. "Yes." "For all of it?" She looked at the cabin, the mountain, the people, and the path that had brought her there. "For all of it." Years later, people in Stonewater still told the story of the summer Lucian Vale came to the mountains. Some called it the summer a powerful man fell. Others called it the summer the settlement learned how dangerous a whisper could become. But Orla never thought of it that way. Lucian's fall was not the most important part. The important part was that she remained. She remained when fear told her to run. She remained when old shame returned in familiar voices. She remained after the truth was spoken and discovered that justice did not erase grief. She remained long enough to understand that strength was not the absence of tears. Sometimes strength was allowing the tears to come while trusting that someone kind would still be there when they ended. Adrian never rescued Orla from herself. He did something far rarer. He made room for her without asking her to change, and he stayed while she learned that she had always been worthy of that room. And Orla's revenge was not Lucian's ruined name, his lost money, or the locked door that finally closed behind him. Her revenge was morning light across the cabin floor. It was honest work beneath her hands. It was laughter that no longer sounded dangerous. It was a strong chair beside the fire, and a man who never asked her to sit quietly in it. It was the mountain home she refused to surrender. Most of all, it was the simple truth Lucian had tried for years to hide from her. Orla Fen had never been difficult to love. She had only been surrounded by people too small in spirit to understand the size of her worth.